Hello. In this video, we'll learn another tool called Google AI Studio. Think of it as a chat GPT on steroids because this has been made specifically for developers. So a lot of things that you can't do on chat GPT or any other platform, for example, on Gemini and others, you can do all of that in AI Studio. So it's slightly more powerful and so what happens because of that is you can do much more with AI Studio than you can do with, let's say, any other platform for that matter. And what it also does is basically it gives you access to all the new models that Google has come up with. So be it Nano Banana, which is wonderful for creating images, to VO 3.1, which is wonderful for making videos, to the normal Gemini platform that they have, which is wonderful for chat, similar to what we do in chat GPT. So all of the different models that AI that Google comes up with, they are first showcased over here. And also because this is predominantly made for developers, you can do slightly more in terms of what all you can do with this as compared to the others that are available in the in the market. So I thought that instead of me telling you exactly what are the steps that are involved and what are the things that we can do, I'll also be doing that. Let's also try to see how we can also ask the platform to teach us how to do a better job. That is because Google AI Studio, like any other AI platform right now, because it's evolving, they are very fast at changing things. So let's try. So this is the homepage. When you type Google AI Studio, this is basically where you come. And on the left-hand side, you have some panels: home, playground, build, dashboard, and documentation. Documentation is basically the details that are available on how to use AI Studio. Then over here, you can see that Google AI Studio, you have something called Vibe Code. We'll talk about this, and this is a very powerful way of going about in a different video. Vibe coding is there. Chat with models. This is basically what we'll be exploring this time. And monitor usage and projects. We'll not be talking about this right now. We'll talk about it eventually. Uh, what's also new is basically there is Nano Banana. Nano Banana is a wonderful text to image creating model that Google has. And it's wonderful at making different images. It is also wonderful at retaining the styles that you've used in the images. So basically, if you want to create a cartoon strip, so every iteration or every prompt that you give, it retains the original character. So that's something that is wonderful about Nano Banana. VO 3.1 is basically for video generation. We'll not talk too much about this because Nano Banana and others would get the job done. However, you can explore it. Then we have something called URL context tool and text to speech with Gemini. So let's get started. What we'll do is we'll chat with the model. So I'll just come up over here. So if you look at it, this is a very familiar kind of a layout if you've used any AI model or any AI platform so far. So you have the same chat option. And what you also have, and this is something that is interesting, what you also have is basically this option of making minor alterations to your search. And this is something that I like about uh, the about Google Studio AI. So you have slightly more flexibility in terms of what you can do. So these are called the run settings. We'll just quickly run through what the run settings are. So the best way of going about, and this is something that I use extensively, is basically you take a screenshot and you can just put it in. So I'll just take a screenshot of this panel. So these are basically different ways in which you can use it. So I've just taken a screenshot. I just drag and drop it over here in the chat box, and I say, this is the run settings provided in Google AI Studio. Can you please help me understand them? And I can also make it so I can give if I remember the three basic structures of writing a prompt. You need to give a persona. So I can say I am a novice at using AI. So it'll basically dumb it down as much as possible. Or you could have said, I want to teach it to a child or something else. So accordingly, so now what it is doing is, it is basically thinking, and it'll come up with the answer. So what we've done is we've given a screenshot, and this is a wonderful way when you're debugging a problem. Let's say there is some problem while you're working on some other platform. Let's say you've coded something and it's just not working, and there's some error that is coming up. You can just do a screenshot and you can just put it over here, and you can ask what are the ways of fixing it. So now it has come up with its answers. So it says, okay, the first thing, if you look at it, and this is very neat, I find it very interesting. So the first thing over here on the right hand side is basically Gemini 2.5 Pro. So this is basically what it is saying. This is the specific AI model that is being used. This is the latest AI model that Gemini has, Gemini AI Pro. So it says for the expert, for the novice, this is like choosing your expert. Are you talking to a generalist, a creative writer, a coding specialist? And depending on what expert you're dealing with, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. So if you click on this, and this is basically what it is, so you can select the kind of expert that you want to work with. So you have Nano Banana, which is basically for creating images, state-of-the-art image generation and editing model. And then you've got Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is basically the latest model that they come up with, and it's good for doing complex reasoning tasks. Then there is Gemini Flash latest, which is basically a dumbed down version of 2.5 Pro. So for everyday tasks, or for tasks which does not require a lot of reasoning, this might be better because this is also faster. So if you remember, when I typed in the first go, it took slightly more time than what ordinarily your chat GPTs would take. That is because we are using a model called 2.5 Pro, which does a lot of reasoning before spewing out the results. So Flash latest is faster, and also it uses less tokens. I'll tell you what that is. And then you've got Flash Lite latest. That is also another option that is even faster and cheaper to use. And then so you've got all these models, image Gen 4, Gemini. So all the AI models that Google has, they'll come up over here. So you can basically toggle between them. I'll just go to Flash latest, or rather I'll go to Flash Lite, because that's the best thing for the kind of work that we're doing. We're just trying to understand how things work over here. So we're not doing anything heavy duty right now. So what is another interesting thing that you need to understand, at least in Google AI Studio, it happens in all the other platforms as well. It's just that it is not this visible, is that every query or prompt that you put in, it consumes some tokens. So by default, you get 1 million tokens each window. So basically this window, when you close it and you start another new session or another new chat, then you will again get this around 1 million kind of tokens. So right now we asked a query, which is basically a screenshot of what was there on the right, and asking it to help us explain what the different settings is. So it has consumed 3,404. So every query that you ask, and the amount of time, so it and the amount of analysis that goes behind in the model to come up with the answer, it consumes some amount of tokens. So if you are using Gemini 2.5 Pro, the consumption would be higher as opposed to what you have with the light versions of models. If you use VO 3.1, the consumption would be much higher, because it consumes a lot of processing power to create videos. So that is basically the rough gist of it. And beyond this, so it also gives you a cost estimation. Right now, for bulk of the work, so till the time you don't hit that 1 million session, everything is free in Google Studio AI. If you go beyond that, or if you need something more than that, let's say you want to analyze a massive data set, and just by virtue of uploading the entire data set, you are consuming this 1 million, because the model takes so many tokens just to understand what the data set is. Then if you start asking question, it'll say that you've maxed out. So in such situations, you might have to go for a paid version, or the other workaround, we'll talk about it in a different video, is that what we did right now. So let's say you work on Excel and you just take a screenshot of how your data set looks in terms of the columns, the structure of your data set, and then you can ask this Google Studio AI to give you the solution in terms of how to analyze things, or you can do that with Python if you want to do something more heavy duty. So you don't need to understand what the code is, but you can still work with it. So that is done. So the first is basically choosing which model you want to work with. For most cases, this is the best model to work with because this is the most cost effective and the fastest of all the models that are available. However, if you're doing anything heavy duty, you can shift it. There is no golden rule. This is something that you'll get better. You'll understand once you start using. So if what I do is, if flashlight is not giving me the output that I'm looking at or looking for, then I upgrade it to Flash 2.5 Pro. So it's a bit of a hit and trial and error. So once you start doing it, you get an idea. So depending on what kind of work you usually do, you'll get an answer to that. Then you've got something called system instructions. This is a very interesting option that you have. So what system instructions does is, so by virtue, AI gives outputs which are not deterministic or which cannot be predicted. So if you ask the same prompt or the same question to AI at different points or in different during different sessions, the answers would be different. And depending on how you phrase the same question. So if I ask, can you tell me what is happening in news today? And if you write, what's in news today? Basically, it's the same question, written in a slightly different way. The answers that you and I will get would be substantially different from each other. So it is wonderful for an individual to have different perspectives and different ideas. But when it comes to an organization, or let's say you are doing something repetitive and something bulk, and you want the output to be as good as what you would have done otherwise. So something as basic as, let's say I write a lot of social media posts, and I don't have time to do that. So what I can do is I can basically create a system instruction, which is basically a prompt, which is an overriding prompt or an overarching prompt, which will always be followed. And this prompt can be well thought of. You can have like 500, 600,000 word long prompt in which you basically define the persona in a much more elaborate way than just saying that I am a journalist or I am a researcher. You explain exactly what kind of work you do, what kind of research you do. So you basically giving a snapshot of how you are as an individual and what kind of work you exactly do. Then you ask exactly what kind of output you're looking at. So in this case, maybe it'll be that I want five social media posts, and I will over here also specify maybe one for LinkedIn, one for Twitter, one for Instagram, or two for Instagram. So I'm basically giving much more detailed instructions in terms of what I want out of it. And finally, you can also write, you can, for the context part of it, just to give it, make it help it understand, you can give as much context as possible in terms of, let's say, so there might be 5 or 6 or 7 social media posts that I have written in the past and they've done wonderfully. So I can use them as examples over here so that Google AI Studio knows exactly what kind of output I'm looking at. So if you do that, so you can create these system instructions over here. So you can basically give a title and give the optional tone and style for the model, and you can basically save it at the bottom. And once you've done that, you can just apply it over here and you can just work with it. So after you have a system instruction applied to whatever prompt you write over here, it will follow the system instructions and then go ahead with it. So I know one thing that a lot of people usually do in media organizations is basically we have style sheets. Style sheet could be something as basic as we always write in British English. So a system instruction could be just a British English. Whatever output you give must be in British English, or it could be in any other APA style or any other referencing style. So you keep that in the background. So whatever output you get from the prompts that you create over here will always adhere to the system instructions as well. Another system instruction that I know in media organizations we use extensively is that we don't want the model to search Wikipedia. So we don't source our information from Wikipedia because it's an open source. So it's good for understanding, but it is not always correct. So you can have a system instruction saying that, okay, these are the sources I don't want you to touch, or another way around could be these are the only sources I want you to touch. So it can be down to its website, it can be CSE's website, it can be certain other websites that you know your search to be restricted to that. So system instructions are like those style sheets that you're given, and this is something that is very powerful if done properly. Then we have something called, let me see what this has said. This says, this is the special instruction box. You can give the AI a rule or set of rules to follow for your entire conversation. It is a permanent instruction that it will remember, unlike a regular prompt. So that is basically what it is. So, so it says, it's very interesting how it has explained it. Imagine you are hiring an assistant, and in that so in that you are basically system instructions is a job description that you'll write. You are a friendly, helpful assistant who always formats answers as a list. So that's basically how it is. So for images, this doesn't work. Then you have something called temperature. Temperature is very interesting. So unlike Notebook LM, so Notebook LM is wonderful when you are researching from a specific source. So you have like 5, 10, 15 out or up to 50 different sources from which you want to cull out information or you want to do literature review. So Notebook LM is perfect because it will not go beyond the boundaries that you have set. But it is not wonderful for getting new ideas. It is not wonderful for getting new ideas or trying anything new. So for that, a Google Studio AI is much better. But all new ideas might not be correct, and all new ideas cannot be explained or followed. Because Google AI Studio, like Chat GPTs of the world, will never say no to any query that you come up with. Notebook LM will, if that query does not adhere to the content that is available with it. It'll say, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying, or I don't have information to comment on this because the documents that you've given does not talk about this. In Google AI Studio, because it's searching the internet, so basically all of these AI models, they are trained regularly. So I know I was using Google AI Studio a couple of days back. The latest, so they have data as recent as earlier this year. So till 2025, I think around April or May, this has been updated. So they constantly keep on updating. So you have newer information to play with. So the models need to be trained. So this is basically what is happening. So it is being trained over here. So temperature basically is like a regulator, which lets you choose the creativity or randomness of your AI response. So think of it as a creative dial. So if it is low temperature, then it will not be creative. It will give you the most obvious or straightforward answers. This is wonderful when you are basically, let's say, you want predictable answers, or in fact, if you're dealing with, let's say, numbers. So you have an Excel sheet and you've uploaded that Excel sheet and you want it to do something out of it. So let's say you want it to give you different visualizations out of it. You don't want the model to be creative over there. Like it says 2.6 and it says, it doesn't look nice, so let's make it something else, 2 or 3 or 3.5, or I don't know what it is. So take it to the closest tens. So it becomes 10 and 20 and 30 and 40. So you don't want the model to do that. So you will keep the temperature to as low as possible. High temperature is basically you want the model to be as creative and unexpected and daring as possible. It might use more interesting vocabulary when coming up with novel ideas. This is great for brainstorming, writing a story, or creating poetry. In your image, image is basically when you are in the image, so when you're in the nano banana model, so this is basically what it is. One, which is maximum, the temperature is set to maximum. That means you've configured the model to be as creative and unpredictable as possible. So when you're creating images, this is basically by default set to 1. So this basically is the dial. You can go from 0 to 2, and it is by default kept at 1. Uh, I would normally not fiddle with it until unless I am very sure. So when I am uh, trying to explore data sets, that is the only time I get bring it down to zero point 0.5. Otherwise, for normal day-to-day workings, I don't really tinker with it, because I remember once I was working on a data set. Basically, what I had done was it was a migration data, and I had asked, so it had migration data for all the countries across the world. So it was like around 200 odd countries, the migration data for multiple years. So I had asked the prompt that I want the migration data for only African countries. So it pulled out the African countries directly from it. Then I said, I want one big number for all the African countries. So it basically had to add it up. And this dial was at 2, I think, or 1.5 or 2. And it got the basic addition wrong. So you realize what happens. So that is the only time when I actually tinker with it. But for most of the other times, I don't really tinker with it. So I just let it be at 1. By default, it is at 1. But you can actually play with it and see what works best for the kind of queries that you raise. Uh, then you have something called a thinking mode. Uh, Thinking mode is something that you can also do. Thinking mode is basically, so the AI model thinks in terms of tokens. So we know what tokens are, and we know how many tokens we have to begin with, around 1 million tokens. So if you want to ration the number of tokens it spends for every query that you are asking. So let's say I want it to think only as much as it can think with 100 tokens or 10 tokens or 10,000 tokens or 1 million tokens. So 1 million tokens means one query completely exhausted. So you can basically ration that. So you can put a thinking budget, and thinking budget is basically how much token you can, how much it can possibly work with. So the maximum is 24,576, which is basically here. And you can also, it can go down to as much as 512. So it's basically that that you can play with. I normally don't do that, but I know a lot of people who, so there are, you can look up on the internet. There are certain kinds of case use scenarios in which they say that you can keep the thinking mode to this much. So for regular search, you can keep it to this much. For a complex analysis, you can keep it to this much. So there are certain numbers that are going that are available on the internet. I normally don't think play with the thinking mode, but you can explore it and you can see if that works fine for you. Then you have some tools. You have some tools. You've got the structured output. So it basically gives you a JSON format, which is not relevant to you right now if you are not aware of it. You can just ignore it. Then you have some a code execution, which is basically it gives you Python prompt for the queries that you've asked, or Python code for the query that you've asked. Function calling lets you define the function. I don't know what this is though. Let me just see. You've got thinking, you've got tools. Huh? So let's see what function calling is. This allows you to give AI a list of own custom functions. Okay, like get current weather and bracket city, or check product inventory bracket item. The AI can then intelligently decide to use functions to answer a question. For example, if you ask, what's the weather in London? It can trigger the get current weather tool. Okay, that's interesting. So basically, if you've created apps or tools, I'm assuming that is basically what it is. We have not done that right now. We will be doing that in another video. Then you can basically pull that information into this. And so that's basically what it is. And there are some advanced options also. So now that we've done this, let us try to understand how you can possibly make the most of this bit. So each AI or each platform has its own advantages and disadvantages. If you are already using a different platform, you will be more comfortable with it. I initially started using ChatGPT. That will be the case for the most of us over here, and then eventually graduated to Google AI Studio. My personal experience is that Chat GPT, the responses, the way it frames answers or the language that it uses is much more human friendly. So it is better in that one sense. So if you're trying to proofread, if you're not really trying to proofread, but if you're asking it to write an article or a research proposal for you, Chat GPT is the place that I would prefer going to. But if you're asking Google AI Studio, if you want to just explore the various ideas that you can work with. So let's say, let me give a prompt. What can be a prompt? So we were looking at the external debt, public debt of developing countries in the Notebook LM video. So, and let's see, I am a journalist, journalist based in India, and I wish to explore the impacts of uh, high public debt in developing countries on climate finance, climate action. Now I'm saying, suggest me 5 story ideas, briefs I can pitch at my newsroom. So I've basically done that and I've clicked on run. The other thing that I like about Google Studio AI is if you can see on the right hand side the panel, you can jump back to all the queries. So that is something that, so there is one over here, and then there is another, I think. So you can basically, it has these points where if you want to go up and down. So that is something that is good. So if you look at it, the tokens are increasing as in when we are asking the questions. So I would ask for 5 questions. So let me see what are the questions it has given. Um, This is a fantastic and time to talk with blah, 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 blah. Debt droughts, how crippling debt is starving climate projects in specific developing country. This is one idea. It has given me an angle and why is it compelling and potential pitch hook. It is also giving me the green debt trap, our international lenders are unintentionally hindering climate goals. So it has basically given me some ideas over here. So now how will I go about? I'll say, okay, let's say I'm assuming that I like the story idea one. So now I know my boss will not just like the story, but also some context with it. So I said, perfect. I like story idea number one. Can you give me some big numbers to go along with it? So another thing that I really like about Google AI Studio, and this is something that I've read, is also true, and I've also experienced it while chatting with it. It remembers much more in terms of the prompt that I'd given initially about what kind of a journalist I am, where I'm based out of. It will remember that in the subsequent queries as well. Chat GPT, not so much. Let's say if I've asked 10 different questions after the first detailed prompt, it might not remember it always. And specifically, if I've asked questions which are a little here and there and it goes somewhere else and something else and again come back to it, it doesn't. AI Studio is better at it. So that is something that I personally like. So let's see what it has done now. The scale of debt, big numbers. Yeah, this is basically what it is. Sovereign debt. Na, 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 na. Huh. Why is it important? So these are the numbers that it says you can look for it. And it is also telling me what kind of ratios should I look for it. So what is good, what is bad. And category 2, the starved climate report quantifying the gaps. Category 3, human impact. So basically different aspects of the story idea that it gave. So it is basically given me that as well. And it also is telling me what are the sources you can look at. I can also ask, and this is basically where it becomes something that I normally wouldn't. I can ask it to give me the exact numbers as well. Uh, but as we know, it you have to verify it. You have to be very clear before you actually give that information out. So that is basically, so the reason why it is not able to give me any numbers is because I've not given it context in terms of what is the region or what kind of countries I'm looking at. If I say, can you give me the numbers for India in particular, and let's see what it does. So basically, you can keep on doing this, and this is something that I really like about Google AI Studio. So let's see what it is saying. Uh, it's saying that it is significant, and it is talking about the central government debt service and costs, external debt. It is giving me exact numbers. Uh, and something else and something else and something else. So basically, this is how it is. And you can ask it to give you the sources as well. In some of the cases, it has given the sources, but then I would normally never ask it to give me numbers. I use Google AI Studio for extensive brainstorming. So basically, when I'm starting off on any communication project, I talk to it. I would even go to the extent of, so let's say I want to understand what is the best way. So let's say, what is the best way of teaching Google AI Studio? And I will say to children, let's say I'm teaching school children or children between the age of 5 and 10 years. So what I'm doing over here is I'm taking ideas from it, even though I know my subject very, very, very thoroughly. It might just give me some ideas over here which I will be able to use. So that is something that I always do. So when I'm starting a project, I spend a lot of time in the chat option or in the playground space of Google AI Studio. And once I have identified how to go about, then usually I go to Notebook LM to do my own research and do so. Basically, I put that the boundaries within which it can actually work with. So that's the process that I normally follow. You can find out the way that it works best that works best for you. However, if you're getting numbers out of this or any other platform for that matter, anything that is getting published, any number that is getting published or any number that is critical to the reasoning or the logic that you're giving, you have to verify the source. And in my case, I actually physically see the document and then believe it. I don't only rely, if I ask Google Studio, okay, from where did you get this number, it'll give me some source. It might or might not be correct at all times. I know for Chat GPT, it is out of 10 times, out almost 6 times it gets it wrong. With Google Studio, it is almost 3 times or 4 times it gets it wrong. I know it'll get better with time. I know there's been tremendous progress in terms of what AI has been doing and how good it is becoming. However, I would still not rely on these to find me those answers. So let's see what it does, and then stop this video. So it says 5 for 10 core principles for teaching approaches. You can do AI is like a smart helper. AI sees and hears. That is also interesting. AI writes and creates. So that's basically what it is. So you get the idea of where you would use AI Studio, or where you should use AI Studio, or rather where Rajat uses AI Studio, and you can basically pick it up from there and personalize it the way you would want to. Thanks a lot. See you in the next video.